This one from 2011. The match was at Lord's between England and Sri Lanka, and though the game finished in a draw, there were centuries from Sir Alistair Cook and Matt Pryor and a massive 193 from Tilakaratne Dilshan. The guest in the commentary box was the author Sebastian Faulks, best known for his novels Birdsong and Charlotte Gray. Faulks has been described as one of the most impressive novelists of his generation. As well as his writing, Faulks is a keen cricketer with plenty of playing experience, and he joined Simon Mann in the commentary box on that sunny Saturday in June.
Hello, Simon. Nice to be here.
It was great to have you here with us. But the reason we invite people onto A View from the Boundary is because they are big cricket fans as well, and you are a big cricket fan. You've listened to this programme for longer than Bloody Blows has been on it, I should think.
I would think so, unless he's been on it 50 years. Even he can't have been on it that long.
It seems like it sometimes.
No, cricket was a huge part of my growing up. We grew up near Newbury in Berkshire, and my dad was a keen cricketer, club cricketer. And just all summer long, we were either listening to what was, I think then on the third programme, as it then was, the commentary, or watching a rather sort of furry black and white television broadcast, or of course playing in the garden and then at school. So, and although I'm a bit too old to be much of a performer anymore, I mean, I have played hundreds and hundreds of games.
To what sort of standard?
I suppose if I was being kind to myself, I'd say sort of superior village, but really not much better than that. I play now really only in at the end of the summer for a team called the Boffins, which is, as the name implies, a fine, fit, athletic group of young men. And we go down to Devon and we play some games down there against Sidmouth, Seaton, along that coast, Kilmington, and a wonderful village called Chardstock, where the pitch is on a sort of 45-degree slope. So if you have a sort of half-decent off-spinner in your side, you're off to a very good start there. But occasionally, even though this is very, very light-hearted cricket, we'll come across a good player and, a Devon opening bowler or an imported professional playing in the leagues. And that's always a bit of a poser. And a few years ago, the Boffins had taken a lot of hammer from Budleigh Salterton, as one of the local teams, and we got a bit fed up with this. So the chap who runs our team, Tony Fairbairn, who works in the racing business, or did for a long time, decided that we'd stiffen our team by getting in a pro. And the pro we chose was Keith Arthurton, who at that time was still playing for the West Indies. Quite how we fixed this, I don't know. But anyway, we turned up to play at Budleigh, and they were rather bored with having beaten us so often. So they'd only got 9 people playing for them. So I was deputed with my brother to fill in for them, which meant that we were bowling at Arthurton. And my brother, who bowls sort of military medium at his best, got hit pretty hard, including through my hands at square legs. So there was a bit of teapotting at that moment. But anyway, eventually when Arthurton scored about 32 in about 10 minutes, my brother Edward bowled him a sort of fairly respectable ball, sort of on a length, but it sort of stuck in the wicket a bit, Budleigh being a very low-lying ground next to the sea. And Arthurton sort of played a forward defensive shot just for fun, really, and it just took the edge, and it flew like a rocket, and it hit the Budleigh first slip right in the ribs. He let out this terrible roar. He clutched his ribs, and when he took his hand away, the ball was still there.
One of those.
So that was, we have some pretty good moments.
So
like
he didn't do the job he was picked to do, which is to win you the game.
No. Well, he was very sporting about the whole thing. But my brother had to think pretty quickly on his feet as to how he'd done it. He said, "Well, it's my classic in-swinger. But first time I found a man good enough to get a touch."
What do you do? You're a bowler, a batsman? I
used to keep wicket. I'm really too tall, but no one else would do it, so I had to do it. And I was an opening batsman of rather in the sort of Colin Milburn mould, I think. Go for it from the off and hope for the best.
Do you come to Lord's much? Is this a big treat for you today?
It's a big treat. Well, certainly being up in this wonderful commentary box looking down, I probably get here, once or twice a year. I live quite nearby, but I've been coming here for a long, long time. And one of the first times I came was in the old Gillette Cup days. And I remember seeing Yorkshire against Surrey here, and Jeff Boycott scored 140-odd, I think.
We don't talk about that very often.
He's not in the box, but I know he'd like to be reminded of a shot he hit over cow corner off Ken Barrington.
Oh, a slog from Jeffrey?
Yeah, first time I'd ever seen him get the ball off the turf. He might claim it was mid-wicket, but believe me, it was cow corner.
Well, that was supposed to be one of his great innings, wasn't it? I think was it 147 he made?
Yeah.
Was it that innings?
Yeah, he did, and it was interesting because it was in the early days of one day, and a lot of very, very high pedigree Test batsmen couldn't really adapt to playing, across the line and hitting the ball in the air at all. I mean, Colin Cowdrey, for instance. But Sir Geoffrey he played fantastically well that day.
I noticed you've knighted him. We knight him as well.
Well, it just seems the only way to go, doesn't it?
Did you sit on the grass here when you came to Lords? You used to be able to do that, didn't you, in the early days of one-day cricket?
No, I don't remember sitting on the grass. We were in the Warner stand, which then was quite new. But it's fantastic seeing the Sri Lankans here, because I have had the great pleasure of playing in Sri Lanka about 30 years ago. The Guardian newspaper took a team out there, which was quite an exciting thing to do, because it was before Sri Lanka were playing Test cricket, just before, I think. And they didn't have a lot of visitors from England in those days. And the people were so incredibly kind and so enthusiastic, and the island was so beautiful that we all sort of fell in love with it. And we had the most wonderful time there in Colombo, where we played at the main pitch, and then we went up to Kandy and up into the hills and so on. And they were just so enthusiastic, and you'd have very large crowds, which were, we were only a newspaper team. We were pretty, a lot of paunchy hacks, not very athletic. But we played in a place called Kurunegala.
I played there.
Have you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were about 5,000 people watching, and mostly small boys, aged about 10. Everyone seemed to be aged 10. But we had a wonderful, wonderful day, and at the end, a huge
big rock
party.
there.
Yes, this massive rock. Incredible setting. And at the party afterwards, it was a Buddhist dry day, which meant effectively no alcohol. But in fact, in the pavilion, you were asked if you wanted beer or whiskey, and if you said beer, you got a bottle of beer, and if you said whiskey, you got a bottle of whiskey. About 1 o'clock, this amazing dancing was going on. Hundreds of people. It was such fun.
How many games did you win? Because when I went on the tour to Sri Lanka, we lost every single game.
We won a few, but they were good. And we played a lot of sort of schools, boys of 16, 17, and they played shots that I hadn't really seen before. That sort of lift over the slips on these very bouncy wickets, and some of them coconut matting. And we just about held our heads up. Then we got to Madras. We went on to India, and then we rather met our Waterloo. We went to practice at the Chapok the day before we were due to play Madras, and I couldn't think how on earth we'd been scheduled to play against Madras. It's like playing against Yorkshire or Surrey. And we had a rather disappointing practice, and I went into the pavilion afterwards, and Venkat, who was the captain of Madras, was standing at the bar, and I rather sort of nervously engaged him in conversation. I said, you do realise, don't you, that we are just a group of sort of out-of-condition journalists? And he said, oh, please don't worry in the slightest. My team is very much weakened by test match calls against Pakistan. So my knees turned to water. But they put out a very, very friendly team. Well, so we had a sort of game, but they were still far too good. Even the sort of, youths and old men were far too good, yeah.
Did you play against or with Gary Sobers, you were telling me?
Was I telling you? Gosh, how terrible of me. Yes, I did drop that name. That was another moment where, rather dreamlike moment, because as a child, growing up, I didn't really have heroes very much, but I had two heroes, one of whom was Bobby Moore, and the other was Gary Sobers, and I spent most of my childhood imitating Gary Sobers in the garden, bowling, left arm over to my brother. And I played in a game up in Stafford for the Houses of Parliament. I can't imagine why. We played against an old Barbados team. They weren't that old, though. They included Joel Garner, who'd only retired about a year before. So I was hiding in the pavilion, trying not to catch the captain's eye. But eventually I got into bat about number 5, and thank goodness Garner was off by then. But Gary Sobers was bowling, and it was a completely surreal experience to be facing this person whom you'd impersonated in your own garden, and who was just a great god. I mean, probably the greatest cricketer there's ever been. And I patted the first 2 or 3 balls back down the pitch with so much respect and care. And then the fourth one, he looked to me a bit like a long hop, and I thought, I can't believe Sir Garfield has bowled a long hop. But I looked again, it was still sitting up there, so I carted him over square leg for 4. To tell the truth, it was a bit of a top edge, actually, but you don't need to know that.
Next one a bit quicker, was it?
Yes, a bit quicker, yes, but he was terribly friendly about the whole thing. They were charming people.
Great stuff from Sebastian Folkes, the author, telling us stories about facing Gary Sobers. You can hear the whole of that podcast
on the BBC Sounds. There's also another podcast that's been released in the last day or so, the Test Match Special Look Back at 2020. We'll have another one closer to the new year, looking ahead to what we think might happen in 2021, as long as we get the cricket that is scheduled, of course, and fingers crossed on that. This is Big Bash coverage on 5 Live Sports Extra, BBC Sounds and the BBC Sport website. We're focusing on the Gabba today. We've already had our fireworks display. You normally have the fireworks display at the end of the match when a team has hit 4 sixes off the last over to win. In this case, it would be the Brisbane Heat, I suppose, to celebrate a Brisbane Heat victory. But I don't know whether they're feeling very confident. I'm not sure. But there's a massive fireworks display during the mid-innings break. The Heat need 151 to win. They need 64 for 1 point against the Adelaide Strikers. The Strikers making 150 to 6 from their 20 overs. No one made more than Matt Renshaw's 32. Renshaw returning with the Strikers to play against his former team today, the Brisbane Heat. He made 32, and Salt 25. Wells 31 and Nielsen 28. There's no Chris Lynn for the Brisbane Heat, which undermines their batting line-up, although he can be a bit hit or miss, Chris Lynn, but if he hits, then he's watch out the bowlers. He is such a destructive player. He pulled a hamstring in fielding practice, so they are effectively a main batsman down. They brought in Simon Milenko, who's sort of a bowling all-rounder, mid-innings type player, so he's in for the Brisbane Heat today. And neither side used their X-Factor players. I was making the point earlier, you look at the names who are the X-Factor players, and they don't exactly smack of X-Factor. Someone who's definitely X-Factor is Stephen Finn. He's alongside me, hoping to get the call for the T10. Steve in Abu Dhabi, is that right?
Yeah, well, you're like my cheerleader here.
Yeah, no,
X-Factor,
exciting. Yeah, exactly. A couple of overs out in the Abu Dhabi, perfect.
I think there's a lot of cricketers or English people hoping that they get picked up in that tournament for a break from the monotony of what we're doing here in England at the moment.
Yeah. It's a difficult time. A lot of cricketers will be going abroad and playing at this time of the year. Some are, of course. Some are playing in the Big Bash. Quite a few England players are playing in the Big Bash, or English players. And some yet to play because they've been quarantining for 2 weeks. That, for some, must be coming to an end very soon. Here's the first ball of the innings. You've got Bryant and Heaslett out there for the Brisbane Heat. The first ball is short. It's a Worrell, an attempted pull shot that strikes the body, and there is no run. So the Brisbane Heat need 151 to win. He's there going for the pull shot, the ball hitting his body and then dropping behind the crease line, between the crease line and the stumps. Just watched it very closely. That one is cut away and caught at backward point. It's a wicket from the second ball of the innings. Worrell bowling shortish outside the off stump. Heaslett went for the cut shot. He actually hit it pretty well, but he hit it straight to backward point. It was a good, sharp, low catch, and Worrell takes a wicket from his second ball. Good low catch taken by Weatherall there, low down to his left-hand side. So Brisbane Heat are 0 for 1, and there's no Chris Lynn to walk in now as well.
Backward point quite a considerable way inside the 30-yard circle there. Quite often you'll see when there's 2 slips, especially, the backward point will be on the 30-yard circle to try and cover and give himself a good opportunity to cut the ball off and stop it going for 4. But here, in an aggressive manner, that backward point is in, almost a catching backward point, and Heaslett can do nothing other than guide it into his hands there. It was a tentative push, really, just a pretty regulation back foot behind square cut shot, but he didn't really go through with the shot. He might have blown the fielder's head off had he gone through with the shot, but trying to guide it down to third man almost. Not much conviction, and takes a smart catch there, the backward point fielder. So early wickets are the order of the day for the Adelaide Strikers to try and put the Brisbane Heat under the pump, and they've got just that, 2 balls in.
And Simon Milenko is in at number 3. Man who's made only 1 half century in T20 cricket in 40 matches. Strike rate is okay-ish. It's 123 I should say. 123 runs.
23, it'd been a bit of problem. It'd been a bit of bother.
Yeah, he wouldn't get any T10 gigs in Abu Dhabi with that, would he? Here is Worrell into bowl to him. Goes into bowl to Malenko with 2 slips in, and it swings away. Malenko comes forward, and at the last moment let that one go. He thought he was going to be one of the X Factor players tonight, Sam Malenko, and then we had that injury to Chris Lynn in the warm-ups. So Malenko drafted in, and he's in at number 3. He's in the first over as well.
We saw that in the previous innings, that the ball swung for the first 3 or 4 overs. There's 2 aggressive slips, a backward point in from the 30-yard circle, and that was considerable swing.
Worrell bowls. Malenko gets a full ball, which he drives up towards straight mid-on. There's a tumbling save from Peter Siddle. He looks very different these days.
It's like Eminem.
He does, yeah. Would you consider dyeing your hair blonde?
I don't know. I've not quite hit midlife crisis stage yet, but I'm not ruling it out. I mean, I'm 31, but maybe if I get to 35 and I'm still going to keep up with a few of the youngsters, I might turn up with a nose piercing, an eyebrow piercing, and some blonde hair, and see how we go.
Yeah.
See whether I feel any younger whilst doing it.
Yeah, well, my daughter came home from university with a nose piercing at the end of the Christmas holidays. So
did she get told to take it out straight away?
No, I said I can get one as well. What do you think? Worrell goes into bowl to Bryant, and Bryant is beaten by beauty. He was playing back there, and it nipped away and bounced a bit and through to the keeper.
That's the beauty of the Gabba. It's a half and half length, where in England here the batsman would be thinking about coming forward to it and hitting the top of off stump. There it leaps, it bounces, perfect seam position, so there's that slight movement away, and that is a classic 4-day play and miss. Encouraging signs for Worrell.
Worrell goes in to bowl to Bryant, and Bryant is forward, pushing back down the pitch, plays that circumspectly. That's a good first over from Worrell. There's a wicket and 1 run. 1 for 1 after 1. They need 64 for the 1 point, 151 for a further 3 points. I use that reverse psychology, Finney, that if you say no, take it out, I'm not having that, that's ridiculous. Then you go the other way. You say no, I think that's great, I'll have one of those as well. And they think, oh no, I can't, I'm supposed to be trendy. If my dad's doing it as well, I'll have to think of something else, or something that, not quite as exciting.
Well, hopefully she comes up with a tattoo or something next time.
Well, yeah. You can get those ones you can rub out though, can't you?
Off the cereal packet.
Yeah. First, like a sort of great big spider on your head or something, yeah. Ready to respond. Anyway, back to the more prosaic matters of this game. Adelaide Strikers won 50 for 6. The Brisbane Heat 1 for 1 after 1. It's going to be Briggs. Danny Briggs is going to bowl the second over.
See, I'm not 100% sure about this. We've just seen the ball bounce and swing.
Briggs with his left armers bowls. First ball is defended back up the offside of the pitch. So, yeah, if there's something there with the ball, use a seam bowler.
Wickets are the order of the day here for the Strikers, and Danny Briggs is a wonderful bowler in the power play in T20 cricket.
Here goes Briggs, bowls. That's hit high in the air. Oh, he could get a wicket. The catch is taken. It is, yep. Catch is taken. It's a short extra cover, and Malenko is on his way. Huge swipe at Danny Briggs. And perhaps they just, I don't know.
Shows what I know. It shows why Middlesex finished 4th in our T20 group this year.
But no, I totally get your point now. If there's something there for the quick bowlers, then why not use them at the start? But it wasn't a particularly good shot from Malenko. A swipe and an aerial catch. The ball barely travelled off the cut part in the air, and Siddle and the captain Siddle and Briggs do a high five as if they thought, yeah, that was a plan that works. Anyway,
he gets good bounce, Danny Briggs. He's a tall man, left arm spinner, and his over-the-top nature means that on wickets such as this, it's very hard to hit across the line. These Australian players wouldn't have seen too much of Danny Briggs, seeing that he hasn't played international cricket for 7 or 8 years or so now. Daniel Lawrence, who's just walked to the crease, at number 4 has seen a lot of Briggs, so he will know that playing across the line to Danny Briggs on a bouncy wicket like this is a very tricky shot. So I suppose good captaincy there, knowing that someone like Briggs will get bounce off this wicket, but whilst the ball was swinging around in that last over from Worrell, the temptation would have been to still bowl a seamer.
Yeah, here's Briggs with a slip in, a short outside the off stump. That got what it deserved. Bryant on strike as the batsman crossed. He crashed it away for 4. That was the first bad ball of the innings so far, really. And the Heat are 5 for 2 in the second over, needing 64 for 1 point, 151 for 3 points. So just to emphasise Finney's point there about Danny Briggs, his last international match for England was a T20 in Hobart in January 2014. His last one day, February 2012. I say last one day, it was only one day. He's played 7 T20s. Briggs goes in, bowls to Bryant, and Bryant gets a ball that spins a bit, actually. It goes past his groping outside edge. It did only spin a bit, straightened from Briggs. That's all it needed to do.
He's a very clever bowler, Danny Briggs, varies his pace a lot, which makes him incredibly hard to just have a swing at him.
He's in now and bowls to Bryant. Oh, he tries to flash that away. And when that came off the keeper's gloves, or that was inside edge onto the pad, it was difficult to tell. It all happened quick as a flash. Might well have gone over the top of the stumps and been knocked back off the keeper's gloves. Let's have a quick look at the replay. Yes, that's exactly what happened. It came forward off the keeper's gloves. Briggs bowls, strikes Bryant on the pad there. Very full delivery with the angle, wide angle down towards the leg side. Hit him on that leg stump. Seeing that replay of the one that came off the keeper's gloves. Was that a drop catch? Was there a little tickle on it? Yeah, I think there was. They're seeing it. So a life there. So Briggs, who shouldn't be bowling, nearly took 2 wickets in an over.
It was an outstanding first over, actually. That one shorter, wider ball that Bryant put away to the cover boundary, but other than that, very straight, varying his pace so that the batsman can't get used to just trying to hit the one pace of the spinner, which is so important. And with Worrell at the other end bowling a probing, swinging full length with 2 slips in, it's going to be a challenge here for Dan Lawrence and the Brisbane Heat. 5 for 2, outstanding start and exactly what the Adelaide Strikers wanted.
Yeah, those mid-innings fireworks looking a bit premature at the moment. You know, the light's beaming down. The sun has set for the day. It's on its way. And night has descended at the Gabba, and Lawrence is out there. Dan Lawrence of Essex, and soon to be England. Worrell goes in and bowls to Lawrence, and Lawrence gets off the mark first ball. He pushed at it rather suspiciously, got a thick edge along the ground down towards third man. So he is underway. Dan Lawrence is part of that England squad that will be heading off to Sri Lanka on the 2nd of January. Just wondering what the situation is. Does he have to fly back and then fly out, or does he fly from Australia?
He's probably better off flying from Australia, isn't he, than coming back here, you'd say. But no, it seems as though there's to be people flying in from all over the world for that tour, I think.
Yeah, I mean, teams like to gather, don't they, and then sort of go as one, but it seems... What are we there? 23rd of December, they're going on the 2nd of January, so there is time to get back and then go out with them. Nicely driven by Bryant down the ground past the bowler. Worrell goes out towards the long off boundary. Rashid Khan with the sliding save, hauls it in and sends in the return. And Bryant comes back for 2 runs, so Bryant goes to 6. The Brisbane Heat are 8 for 2 in this third over. Adelaide Strikers made a slow start as well. They were 13 for 1 off their first 3 overs. It's kind of sandy outfield, the Gabba. Just saw Rashid Khan diving, sort of bringing up some debris, a bit like, you know, remember that Simon Jones incident where he stuck his studs into the ground and turned his knee. Bad consequences. 1 more run to the total, and Lawrence, rather Bryant playing that way into the offside, back of the square. It goes through for 1, takes him to 7. And Lawrence back on strike on 1. 9 for 2 in the third over. Brisbane Heat's run chase against the Strikers. At the moment, they're making hard work of it. 2 wickets down already. Worrell moves in with 2 slips in, bowls to Lawrence, who plays a glorious shot, giving himself a bit of room and crashing that over wide mid-off, extra cover. Excellent, confident stroke from Dan Lawrence. Takes him to 5. He'll score 13 for 2.
One that you wouldn't really expect either. Worrell's trying to bowl that full probing length. Lawrence gives himself a slight bit of room and just climbs into it over extra cover. It's a wonderful shot, but Dan Lawrence, you would think, usually favours the leg side, usually would step across and try and hit to that leg side. So opens up the offside and absolutely nails it towards deep extra cover.
It's a glorious shot. Worrell bowls to him, and this time he plays into the onside. Worrell hit the non-striker, might have hit the non-striker there. Worrell got across with his boot. Anyway, he deflected it, and they run through for another single, and the Heat go to 14 for 2. Coming to the end of the 3rd over. I mean, how highly do you rate Dan Lawrence? Have you seen enough of him to form a strong opinion one way or the other?
Yeah, we've played against him more in white ball cricket than I have red ball cricket, so in terms of his test credentials that he's going out to Sri Lanka for, I wouldn't be that able to comment, other than the fact that he's played in a very successful team over the last few years and has been an important cog in that machine.
Worrell bowls. Bryant goes over the top this time, out towards the wide long off boundary, and that's gone away for 4 as well. So they've decided to take on Worrell in this. So there are some gaps, of course, because he's bowling with some slips in there, and the field is up. So Bryant goes to 11, and it was a much better over for the Brisbane Heat, who lost 2 in the first 2 overs. He's for naught, and Malenko having a swipe at Briggs, out for 1, a short running round from extra cover towards mid-off to take a comfortable catch.
Now, I'm not blaming Danny Briggs for this, or the left-arm spinner, but I do think that quite often when a spinner is given the ball in the first few overs, it can scuff it up slightly so it then doesn't swing. And in the first over from Worrell there, we saw quite extravagant swing movement away from the right-handed batsman, which made it very hard to hit. That's why the batsmen were so circumspect in that first over. Danny Briggs then bowls an outstanding over in the second over. Worrell bowls the third over, where we saw no swing whatsoever. So there may be some correlation between the spinner bowling the second over and then the seam bowlers losing that movement, which is so important for taking wickets, especially early in a T20.
How would a spinner scuff it up in 1 over?
Well, I think just the way that the ball hits the wicket, the way that when the batsman hits it tends to get hit into the dirt.
Here's Siddle into the attack, bowls down the leg side first ball. Lawrence tries to glance, doesn't need to do so really, because he knows it's going to be a wide, and that is duly called.
It's probably another slight cricket myth as well, but it does seem to be that when a spinner gets the ball, whether they're rubbing the sides of the ball or when they spin it, it sort of hits the shiny side, whether they undercut it slightly or change their pace. There is definitely something about it.
Lawrence waits, Siddle bowls to him. Lawrence tiptoes down the pitch and plays it quietly into the onside, up towards Rashid Khan at mid-on, all in blue. Blue boots to go with his blue Adelaide Strikers uniform. And Peter Siddle walking back with his blue and blonde look. Peter Siddle sets off again. Bowls outside the off stump, forced away by Lawrence, and that's gone before as well, through the backward point area. He hit that on the up. It was a scything sort of cut shot, just threw the bat at it, and he made decent connection, and it raced to the backward point boundary. Again, Lawrence giving himself some room. The bat didn't end up quite in the right place, it seemed. It was actually heading out towards the square leg, the bat. It was a bizarre shot in a way. Lawrence to 10. Siddle bowls. Again, Lawrence gives himself some room. Plays out in more orthodox fashion on the up, this time out towards deep cover. And gets his 11th run. He's 11 from 6. Bryant is 11 from 9. And the Heat beginning to get into their task here. 24 for 2 in the 4th over.
We saw in the first innings when Renshaw and Salt were going, they were both stepping across the stumps and trying to hit towards the leg side in order to get some momentum.
Siddle bowls to Bryant. Bryant has a huge wipe at that one and misses it through to the keeper. Siddle's got a smile on his face.
And we mentioned that potentially it might be better to try and use the pace of the ball to try and open up the offside to be able to play more proper cricket strokes, which will give you here at Brisbane a better chance of finding the middle of the bat. And already immediately we've seen from both Bryant and Lawrence especially, who's come to the crease and opened up that offside, how much easier it is to time the ball with a straight bat on the offside rather than playing across the line to the leg side.
Siddle bowls to Bryant. Bryant nudges that away, back of a square on the offside. There are two men there. And he somehow manages to find a big enough gap to go through for a single. Lawrence responded with the call, running to the striker's end. So Bryant nudges ahead of Lawrence. 12-11. Heat 25 for 2. Coming to the end of the power play. Last ball of the power play coming up, the 4th over, and the 4 over power plays and 2 overs of power play later. So the Heat's initial target is 64 for 1 point. 25 for 2 out of 4. And then their ultimate target is 151 for 3 more points. Lawrence not quite ready. Now he is, brushing away some debris. He's got deep inside his crease. Siddle bowls, and it's a leading edge there. He's going to turn that way into the onside. And a thickish outside edge goes out to cover, and that is the end of the over. So 4 overs gone. The power play is done. Let's just compare power plays. The Heat 25 for 2. The Strikers 24 for 1. So not a huge amount in it at this stage, but it's very early in the Brisbane Heat innings. But there's no Chris Lynn for them tonight, and they have lost a couple of batsmen already to come. We've got Tom Cooper, Jimmy Pearson, the wild card to some extent in Jack Wildermuth, and then Mark Steketee, Xavier Bartlett, Majib Ur-Rahman and Ben Lockler. Those are the players to come for Brisbane Heat, and also to come for Adelaide Strikers. There's always that thing in the back of any batting team's mind, is Rashid Khan and how we are going to play him. Do we play him in a conservative way? Do we say, right, can we take him for 24 without losing too many wickets?
I think the best way that I've seen people play him, I think if you're timid and you don't commit to what you're doing, then he is just all over you, because he can get a read of the situation. He's so experienced in this format of cricket. The best players that I've seen play him, probably Owen Morgan, used the sweep and reverse sweep.
Rashid bowls with a slip in, and does he get a wicket first ball against Bryant? Yes, he does. Bryant playing that one outside the off stump, thin edge through to the keeper. This time it was held, and it's 25 for 3, the Brisbane Heat. Harry Nielsen holding on to that one. Bryant has gone for 12, and Rashid Khan a wicket with his first ball.
Tentative push, and you do tend to see Rashid Khan do this to batsmen. He just tries to push it for 1 through the offside, maybe thinking about just getting off strike, but his foot movement was neither here nor there. It was a perfect length, slightly spinning away. We saw Danny Briggs in the second over of this innings spin a ball away from a right-hander, which if Danny Briggs is spinning it in the first or second over of an innings, then you know there's something there for the spinners. Rashid Khan comes on in the 5th over. Perfect length, perfect line, slight movement away. Bryant's footwork wasn't quite there, finds the outside edge. Brisbane Heat in even more trouble now, 25 for 3.
Yeah, just look at Rashid so far in this big bash. He's gone 1 for 38, 1 for 27 and 1 for 34, so perhaps a little bit more expensive than you'd expect him to be. But tonight, with a fraction of turn in this Gabba pitch, there is something to work with, and it may well be that he's going to really hold sway in the next few overs. Anyway, he's got a wicket with his first ball. Tom Cooper is in at number 5 for the Brisbane Heat, who are struggling a bit now. 25 for 3 in the 5th over. It's always a delight to watch Rashid Khan playing. Whatever competition he's playing in, it's always fun when he comes on. Is he taking a wicket with his second ball as well? No, says the umpire. He's right back into his stumps there, Cooper. Ball turning into him. It didn't look too high, just was a question of whether it was missing leg stump.
I'd like to see the DRS on that, but it's pitched on middle and off. It's probably a good decision, to be honest, just missing the leg stump. He's right pinned back on his crease, but good clever bowling again from Rashid. The first ball spun away, that one was a googly.
Rashid bowls very full, this time dug out into the offside. A clever piece of fielding from Rashid as well. He didn't just bend down and pick it up, he he's almost got his back to it and lets it roll between his legs, and it came quite firmly and he picked it up. A little trick from Rashid Khan. So he's 3 dot balls so far, including a wicket. Rashid bowls to Cooper, who tries to hoof this away on the leg side. It was a flatter delivery, short, but it stayed down and he could not get underneath it. Struck him on the pad, went away into the offside. So 4 dot balls in this over.
So hard to hit across the line like that unless you're sweeping. The best players that I've seen play him have swept him.
Rashid bowl, that's short, and that's pulled away in the air, out to deep mid-wicket. Not such a good ball from Rashid Khan. He was able to get onto it that time, Cooper, because it was just sat up a bit. It was very short. Only a single though. In a way, he rather missed out, but there are 2 men back on the leg side.
And he bowls so quick that it doesn't, for a leg spinner, he bowls uncharacteristically quick. As we get another look at the DRS on this decision, and it's an umpire's call on going down the leg side. So arguably a good decision as a bowler. I mean, I would love to have seen the umpire's finger go up there, but I think when you looked at it naked eye, it did look as though it was going down the leg side. But clever bowling from Rashid Khan, but he bowls so quick, he pins people on the crease so often like that because the pace that he bowls for a leg spinner.
Now Dan Lawrence gets to face him. Rashid bowls, and Lawrence comes stabbing forward there, bat and pad close together. And say, right, let's get out of that over. And it's an excellent one from Rashid. 1 for 1 from his first over, and Brisbane Heat are 26 for 3 after 5 overs. A few more thoughts from you, Finney, then you're going to have a break. Kevin Howells is going to pick up the commentary.
Yeah, it's an outstanding start for the Adelaide Strikers. They came into this innings knowing that maybe they were slightly under par, even though they did have some impetus in the second half of their batting innings. But they've come out here all guns blazing with the ball, had the intent to take wickets, which is so important when you're defending a total such as this. And they've come out, and every single one of their bowlers has put their hand up and made a big difference to the flow of the game. So Adelaide Strikers are in the ascendancy here, you'd say. The Brisbane Heat have it all to do, but as we know so often in T20 cricket, the momentum can to and fro, and it's likely that we'll see that again.
And the start of this next over, and Briggs continues to bowl, and it's driven out into the offside, and a single is picked up, so the Heat move to 28, the loss of 3 wickets. Lawrence and Cooper are the batters. Briggs twice subbed in this competition already this season, but he's actually bowling his second over here, and that one is driven off the bat of Cooper again into the offside, just to pick up 1. So it's 64 runs needed for the Bash boost point, and then if you want to pick up another 3 for the victory, or if the Heat do, they need to get 151 runs. They're at 29 for 3 in their 6th over. Now Lawrence is back on strike. 11 not out from 8 balls faced, and Briggs, 3rd ball of his 2nd over, and that's pushed into the offside for a single. Lawrence again will just turn over his score by 1 on to 12. Lots of smiles on the faces of the Strikers in getting these early wickets, but they need more just to make the most of it, and this one is pushed up towards the long off boundary this time by Cooper for 1 on 5.